Well, the purpose of these talks is to try to put Ukraine in as strong a position as possible over the next month, ahead of January 20th, when President Trump will take over the White House and is expected to force peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The concern is that things are not going very well for Ukraine on its eastern battlefields right now. And if that trajectory continues, they could be in a very weak position on January 20th, which could force them to cede vast amounts of territory to Russia, as well as make a promise to not join NATO or even not join the EU. So the question is, what can be done over the next month? Now, the Biden administration in Washington is also trying to rapidly push forward support for Ukraine over the next month, again, to put it in the best position possible by January 20th, and that's what they'll be talking about here. So tonight, on the sidelines of an EU summit, which is, by the way, the last time there will be an EU summit before Donald Trump takes office, on the sidelines of that, President Zelensky will meet with the leaders of Germany, France, Poland, Italy, as well as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and the Foreign Minister of the UK, David Lammy, to try to think of ways to front-load that military support to change what's happening on the battlefield over in the East in time for January 20th. The other thing they'll be talking about tonight, or they're expected to talk about at least at that dinner, is this idea of European peacekeeping troops sent to Ukraine in order to enforce whatever peace deal might be reached. Now, this is something that's reportedly being pushed by Donald Trump. Last week, French President Emmanuel Macron went to Warsaw to discuss this idea with the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He did not seem very enthusiastic about that idea at a press conference afterwards. So we'll see. Both of them will again be at this dinner tonight, and perhaps Tusk can be convinced about this idea. But there's a lot of people in Europe that worry that if Europe gives in to this demand by Donald Trump now and signals now that they're ready to put forward peacekeeping troops, it looks like Europe is accepting the inevitability of a peace deal, and they don't want to be in the position of having European troops enforcing essentially a surrender by Ukraine and the territorial acquisition of vast parts of eastern Ukraine by Russia. So this is a very sensitive subject expected to come up tonight at that dinner on the sidelines of this summit.
And Dave, like a lot of things here, of course, it all comes down to money, right? I mean, what about financing? Can the European Union give any more money than it already has this year?
It really can't, and that's why the focus of tonight's talks will be mostly on military equipment delivery, because they've already signed off on that 50 billion euros from the G7 countries, which will be allocated in 2025. So 2025 is basically set. They can't do much more than that, and anyway, it wouldn't make much difference in the next month. What Zelensky is hoping to get is maybe signals for 2026 and 2027. So basically, the EU would be demonstrating that if these peace talks don't work out, or if Donald Trump changes his mind and doesn't force the peace talks, that the European Union and Europe in general is ready to stay the course in terms of financing for Ukraine's war effort. So there might be talks about what can be done in the EU budget in order to push more EU funds over to Ukraine. But it's a difficult ask when a lot of European countries are struggling economically right now, and sending that money or even signaling that money, taking that money out of the budget now, probably not going to happen at this point when we're talking about so far in the future. So we're unlikely to get any new financing announcements today or tomorrow, but we are looking for more military equipment announcements.
All right, Dave Keating, thank you so much for that. Dave reporting for us from Brussels. We're going to take a look